Praise Jah Jah Rastafari. Thank Yahweh Rastafari. Praise Jah Jah Rastafari. Yahweh Eloheinu. Jah Jah Rastafari. Praise Yahweh Rastafari. Jah Jah Rastafari. Save I and I soul. Oh. And rest the soul of I and I, Wyndham. I told you we're mourning. And we'll be mourning in the name of Rastafari. In the name of Rastafari. Praise Jah Jah Rastafari. Praise Yahweh Eloheinu. And again, we're mourning our brethren, Nelson Rohele Helala Mandela. Rest his soul, and may his soul rest with the High Fathers. And we want to say this prayer, for the Holy Spirit has brought it to us. Imbete Mariam Hoy Bemela Aku Bekadus Gabriel Salamta Salam Ile Shalehu Behasabish Dengel Nesh Besigashim Dengel Nesh Ye Achinafe Ye Igaze Abihir Inat Hoy Lanich Salamta Yegebale Kese toch hulu tele yetesh anchi yetbarakish nishina ye mahatsin nishim filre Jesus Christos Baruch Amlak nu tsegan yete malash hoy dese yebelish igaze abihir ke anche garnuena Kete wededu lejesh ke gietachin Jesus Christos zindi yerkertan mehretin lemenyelin hatiatachinin yesetes rayelin zindi amen amen Jah Rastafari Rastafari amen amen. And we're back again. You know, mourning Nelson Rohele Helala Mandela. And we want to say that, you know, there's a lot of brothers and sisters out there. I've heard some of the, I've you know, looking at some of the notes and recently going over some of the things that the ones have been saying, and we respect the fact, I and I's coach, I and I's older brethren, I and I's coach, Wyndham, Yadon Raza, Yadon is Teferi, and blessings for his spirit, his heart, and his soul, and his preachings, and his teachings, and his works, and his family, and his sister wife, and his children, and blessings to him, and all the I family, and Wyndham Jason, and Wyndham Alonzo, and Malake Media House, and Rastafari Renaissance, and New Jersey Herb Man, and Tobiah Teferi, and Ayana, and Paul Ikushi, and I could go on, brothers and sisters. I say all of these names and many more in my prayers. But because I love God's children. But what I want to say is that I was doing one on was speaking about the true Christians being war ready. And it's kind of like it's the same thing that happened with Malcolm X. It's almost like the same thing what happened with Malcolm X. Not with Nelson Mandela though. Like Nelson Mandela, it's not that he stood for anything. I don't want to say that Malcolm X didn't stand for what Nelson Mandela stood for on that level. But on a different level, Nelson Mandela was on a higher scale. You know what I mean? What he stood for was on a higher scale. What Malcolm X stood for was the same, and it was getting there, but there had been some, there had been some, can we say some inconveniences and situations that had deterred I and our brethren, Malcolm X. In fact, we have his book, Malcolm X. I really love the brethren Malcolm X, despite some of the mistakes. I love Dr. King too, even despite a lot of mistakes that were made. Even when you look at Dr. King, and that's one thing I wanted to make the example when looking at Dr. King and Nelson Mandela. The thing is that it seemed as though that Nelson Mandela, and like I said, during his incarceration, he may have had a certain type of metanoia to know that he was looking. When you look at the Ethiopian peoples overall as a general, all around the world, right? They are not grounded on one truth, and not just them. We're not just talking about the Gentiles too. We're talking about all peoples. They're not grounded on any one truth, and we owe that to Ha Shaitan Yetorigam Yahum. Cursed be he. But people, on the other hand, it's their own fault too. They were not seeking themselves. And for Nelson Mandela, for Nelson Rohile Helala Mandela to be Rastafari and to come forth with Rastafari in such a high leadership position, the people, I personally don't feel, and I think he got it too, because I remember not just the movie with Morgan Freeman. There's another movie that one brother plays of Nelson Mandela. I personally like him, was one of the actors. He does the Allstate commercials now. Well, he was the brother, the black brother with the deep voice. He also played Nelson Mandela's real movie, as far as what Nelson Mandela was going through apartheid, when the white folks were calling, another word in South Africa they would use for nigger was kefir. The kafir, which is very interesting, because in Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68, but before 15 through 68, on Deuteronomy 28, in the first verse, I have a blog series called Within the Towboat. If you ever get a chance, just go and check it out. You can go to Rastafari Groundation. You can go to YahWillingAC at at YahWillingAC at WordPress.com. But give me 1 second. I want to go get this book. If you're good, 1 second. Don't look it. Are we leaving? Okay. All right. But basically, El Shabazz, the brethren El Shabazz. My kids kind of excuse their writings, and but Rastafari, we're gonna be all right. And I want to give it up to the Idris Sizzler on his record, the Miyaya Aya, the Messiah. That was a beautiful record, gracious. And I also want to give it up to Snoop Lion's record. I actually want to save this. I don't want to get into that right now, because I actually want to do a vid for that. But Nelson Mandela. I see a lot of ones you might have something angry to say about Nelson Mandela. Like, you feel like he left South Africa in a certain type of way. But the truth is that one thing that all Africans must come to the grip of is that one African king, and stop letting other people outside of your nation run your country. And we give an example of that. With His Imperial Majesty, the interesting thing is during the invasion of Ethiopia by Mussolini, which is, it's very interesting. When we go there, we could pause for a minute. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam HaMotze Lekom Min HaAretz. Amen. And a double blessed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Beri Feri Hagafen. That's the Fasika of what the the Jewish, or they call Pesach, but it's in its root Fasika. Right? Well, it's something like your Easter mixed up with the Exodus, and that's just a basic point. Fasika, Pesach, that's what it is. But that's just basic. It's so much more detailed than that. You know, that we're tutin leti gagaru. For some who know what that means, that going forth by day and night, dough bread baked. That going forth by day and night with that dough bread baked. The true ones that go forth by day and night with that dough bread baked. You know, Rastafari. Ja Rastafari. Now, the interesting thing is that about this book right here, we want to say we love this man too. I love Malcolm X as well. You know what I mean? Despite some mistakes that were made on you know, and Dr. King as well. You know, I love Dr. King too. But for Nelson Mandela, this great man, some say he left South Africa, and then I heard even one say that he should have died with the revolution he is in. Why should one man, right, who takes on so much, this is my question. Why should he die, right, and not all the people who he fought for with him die with him? You know, it's the same thing like Malcolm X, man. A lot of brothers and sisters, and I noticed this, you sit around, right, and there's others on the front line talking and speaking on camera, giving themselves up, whatever may be, putting their lives on the line, like the NJ Weed man, Ed Fuccino. I don't care what none of y'all say, talking about you know, whether talking about Brother Haile Selassie wasn't a real Rastafari, and some say who's real Rastafari and not, but y'all ain't real though. Y'all ain't standing up and coming forward for what you truly mitmanan, for what you truly say you are main in job. Y'all ain't standing up for us. You know, y'all ain't making phone calls to the governor's office. This brother is sleeping right now. I just seen the Facebook. Alright? He just had to get a hotel. He's running out of money, and he has bone cancer. You know what I mean? And what are some of the eyes sitting around doing? You know what I mean? Pretty much nothing. But then commenting and talking about ones and ones is this. But where's our brotherly love? Where's our help? You know what I mean? Like, we all come together. Now, I'm not talking about certain immediate eyes because they out there putting forth things. But there's some eyes who's criticizing, fire burning others and are doing nothing. You know, like, I mean, I had an eye even criticize me talking about Rastafarian. Don't say, why you saying Rastafarian? You know what I mean? I know I'm Rastafari. You know what I mean? And I mean, I understand that concept too. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. It's really truthful, actually, because Rastafari is defining itself of the whole entirety as a whole. But when I say Rastafari Iron or Rastafarian, when I said that, it'd be, you can look at it, if you're a Rastafari, it's similar to an Ethiopian saying, I am an Ethiopian. See, because if you talk to an Ethiopian and you say, are you an Ethiopian? And you tell him, are you an Ethiopian? He's not going to say, I'm an Ethiopia. He's going to say, I'm an Ethiopian. But then again, Rastafari does not have to be used like that. It already denotes itself, so the brethren is right. But it's not a big enough deal for you to get hostile with me about. You know what I mean? I'm putting myself up there. I'm representing for the truth, for the righteousness, so that we get our rights back, so that we get our schools back, so that we can put our children in our own schools. We can raise our own children. We can utilize our own resources. We can agriculture on our own land. You know, which is a gracious and a beautiful idea. And if you're not thinking about doing any of that, in spirit being reborn again everywhere you at, Ethiopia, Shashamani, Rastafari is where you're at, wherever you're at. You know, wherever you're standing, it is right there. You don't necessarily have to go all the way to Ethiopia to be Rastafari, because I is Rastafari all over, everywhere. The universe itself is Rastafari, because Rastafari made all these things. That's why we don't have to pretend to hope. But the thing is that we don't have to pretend to hope. We always hope. But the thing is that Nelson Mandela, and watching, with Nelson Mandela, and I want to do there's a reading I'm gonna do on Nelson Mandela. His there's a brethren who does a good article, kind of biography on Nelson Mandela, as well as many others, and I just wanted to read it out on a vid, and that's more than likely what I do in these days of mourning for I and our brethren Nelson Mandela, Rohile Hilala Mandela. But what I'm saying is that why should one man die, right? Why should one man die, right? For a revolution, right? And its future course turned out like this. You know what I mean? Why should one man die for people who are in a state of inertia? And that's real. That's real. Rastafari in a state of inertia. They ain't moving. You know what I mean? It is moving. The hydrants that I see moving, but there's a lot of ones out there ain't doing nothing. But at the same time, would say something like, Nelson Mandela. I don't see why he should have to die for something that had that was losing progress, if you will. That was actually starting to lose progress itself. But I mean, he may have made certain decisions, and I don't know all the whole root reasons why he might have made them. But I'm just saying that him as a leader who took on so much, did 27 years in prison, you know what I mean, comes out and tries to make peace and make things better, because he knew that an all-out war with the Gentiles was probably what the Gentiles probably wanted at the time, because we were so divided. I mean, that's best when you hit him. That's best when the enemy would hit you, is when you're down. He knows you're down because all your parts are divided. We divided over here, one's divided over there, one's going for this, one's going for that. The African Americans on their own little trend. You know what I mean? Benjamin on their own trend. The Haitians, Lewawayan, if you will, righteously, the Levites, they on their own little trend. Zabulon, they on their own little trend. Ishkar, they doing their own thing. You know what I mean? But when are we going to take all these true principles, which is at hand, that's truth, our fundamental rights, and come together and all be Nelson Rohile Helala Mandelas? You know what I mean? Because he actually stepped out and put his face forward. And there were brothers and sisters at that time, they weren't playing. See, and that's one thing about those brothers and sisters at that time. They were getting up. They stood up. They walked. They went down. They marched. And as far as non-violence, when it comes to somebody taking something from you, you have no choice but to strike back. You have no choice. If somebody is coming and taking things from you, you have no choice but to take it. That's the only way you're going to get it. But it's not saying that one should go and start a war, start a battle, or start some type of bloodshed. That's not what I and I are saying. But the battle is already on. The battle is already on. We've had things taken from us. Our things have been taken from us. Our land has been stripped from us. We have the problems going on in the land. They fighting us all over the world. We are divided amongst each other as a peoples, not Rastafari. For the true Rastafari, they move forward, and blessings to all you brethren and sisters in and through Jesus Christos and the Keramawi Haile Selassie Baruch. But I want to say that the King of Kings, as an example, when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia in 1945, was it sometime 1945? Was around there. I'm sure some brethren will correct that, or I'll go look it up myself. But around the time when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, His Imperial Majesty fought at the head of the army. And I don't even know if a lot of people know that. You can know that by reading the Geneva Convention, which is something we should read. The Geneva Convention, because it's another documentation, or a job given, if you will, you know what I mean, a documentation proving, right, sovereignty, or proving that one is free to operate in marijuana as Rastafari by the Geneva Convention. Ed Fortino already said that. He had mentioned that. As well as those who do know that, and then our fundamental rights, and then the Ethiopian World Federation, and I kind of give it to one of the prophets who was speaking to the eye in spirit and truth, in and through Giatachini Jesus Christos. I give it to the prophet who was speaking to the eye. He told me one time, and I spoke to the prophet, and I was like, I think I told him something about the EWF, and we didn't get to finish the conversation, but he said something, and I'm still meditating on it now, and he goes, I told him something like, like what I would do for my for my rights, and he was like, nah, he'd come at me. He knew, he was just saying, like, the devil will come at you like this, like, that's not enough. You need more. So of course we need more. We need our documentation. And I was thinking to myself, and I knew what he was trying to tell me, but I didn't have the answer at the time, and I didn't get to speak with him after that. He kind of, the phone, something happened, and something happened with the battery. But what I figured it out, what he was trying to tell me was that never stop. They always gonna come with something. Always have something else. You always have something. There's always, because if there's a will, like Brother Hanes Selassie said, there's a way in Jah, in the King of Kings, in the Jesus Christos, and the Keramawi Haile Selassie Baruch. Then there's a video. I want to address a brethren, or no, not a brother. You're not my brother, but he said something about, you said something about His Imperial Majesty on my last video. You said that you have to prove that His Imperial Majesty was the prophecies about him being false. Really, I don't even I really don't care. There's other ones would probably tell you they don't care what you say. I mean, because that's really not even any good evidence. I think that's not even the best. That's not even partly some of the good evidence that has came out about against His Imperial Majesty that I need to defend. I already made a video on that a long time ago. And you were talking about is His Imperial Majesty emanated from a deity. Now, many other people who probably seen that video, or they already know what I'm talking about. They know what I was talking about. But you don't. You probably, just learning. So I guess I'll say a little something for you. Really, when he says, that man is not emanated from a deity, he's saying that don't think that, basically in small word, that Jesus Christos created him, or that he is the Jesus Christos, the person, returned. He's just saying that spiritually he is returned. But really, the question is so it's like the way he gave the best answer for the question, because it was it's like an idiotic question in a way. The question itself really doesn't make sense, because it deals with, you're asking a Christian, right? First of all, you're asking a Christian man about reincarnation. See, those already it's already the combo itself is already unbalanced. You know what I mean? It's already thrown off. So there's nothing really, that, like I said, that's not even really good. I already did a video on that. Go check it out. I'm not gonna talk about it really too much anymore, because I already talked about it. But I'll still always defend it, because that's what I do. I defend any account against His Imperial Majesty, and that's not even a good one. It's not even one of the best ones I heard. I think one of the best ones I heard, not even one of the best, because it wasn't. It was proved. I proved it wrong too. But it was someone out of Tigray, Tigrinya, who wrote an article talking about the law of the jungle. And I was going to expose him. I remember to go back and get the article and everything. I was going to expose that individual. I still will look for your article if it's out there. So this gives you time to take it down before I find it and show it to all the brethren, so they can know the truth about you. And all you fake churches who say you don't amen in His Imperial Majesty, the King of Kings, that means you don't amen in the Son, and you have no salvation, and you surely won't have grace. For Jesus Christos is salvation, and Keramawi Haile Selassie is grace, and Elohim is salvation and grace. That's why Jesus Christos and Keramawi Haile Selassie are both salvation and grace. And But Baruchu, bless though. The eyes in them really the so-called Christians at the time too, and a lot of Christians too. There came something that happened where the Christians they probably weren't even the same type of Christian they were before Nelson Mandela was before his incarceration to after. He probably was, and he thought about that too, and he knew it. And he probably, when he came out, he seen the generational changes that were happening. In fact, South Africa, in a lot of ways, Nelson Mandela stopped a whole lot of what could have been a whole lot worse. You know what I mean? But it's still a deteriorating place. With the whole apartheid and the white supremacy, and they still have the wrong, the wrong governors running the wrong provinces. Look, I think, and it's just really simple. If you really want to do it, you want to get into it. If you have a governor over a province for a year, and you go back in a year and the province got worse, kick him out of office. How does that sound? I think that's an easy solution. We can go by that all over the world. If you somebody is over province for a year, and you come back in a year, right, and you look at their paperwork and you look at their documentation and you look at their orders or whatever they were given to do, and there's no, in a year they didn't try anything, they did their best efforts, right, and there was no progress, get another leader in, kick him out. But I mean, I believe that's a solution to every problem. And if there's a problem with it, the people should rise up against it. Anything that's against what is theirs within their own country. If you go to China, right, you don't see somebody from another country running it. If you go to any other country, you don't see someone from another country running that country. Only in ours, only in Africa do you see this happen. So I submit that to the eyes. I say that to the eyes. Why should one man, right? This leader, well, we already know what he was about. Why isn't the people still have the same type of spirit, fire, and drive that they did when Nelson Helala Mandela was incarcerated? When they got up and stood up then, what is different now? Okay, it's just like when they go on the news now, right? And there's a lot of people, they singing, they dancing. That Rohele Helala, he passed. But if we're looking at it from the West, we're looking at it today in today's age, in our generation, and we look, they're getting westernized. They starting to look like brothers and sisters you see up in the in the streets over here. You know what I mean? The Africans are. That should scare you, because that means that the number one influence to them is what they see us doing. See, so whatever they see us doing, they're influenced by, right? So if we are main and Mitmanan as true Christian warriors and Giatachin Jesus Christos and the Geramawi Haile Selassie, Baruchu Jah, then so will our brothers and sisters follow in and through Jesus Christos and the Geramawi Haile Selassie. Jah Rastafari. Amen.